I love when people think deeply about games. I've said it time and time again on this podcast. Fandoms can get dicey, obsessions get toxic, but the people that make up the communities are genuinely awesome. Why? Because there's always a story on the other side of that love. Last week on the Kefkasode, I chatted with cosplayer Yurik about the evil clown prince, and I said I was looking for cosplayers to talk about Final Fantasy VI because of those deep connections. I met him through this week's guest, the cosplayer known as Mama Terra. From making connections at school to building her impressive media literacy to reaching people literally around the world, her story is so deeply intertwined with Final Fantasy VI's green-haired protagonist, it deserved to be told uninterrupted. So let's do it. Time to go on a personal journey with one of the internet's foremost Terra cosplayers and learn exactly how deep her connection goes on episode 110, Final Fantasy VI, Part 5, The Mama Terra Story. So, let's first just kind of talk a bit about your history with Final Fantasy VI. When was the first time you played it, experienced it, kind of those first impressions? Because it's a big game with lots of big first impressions, and then we'll just roll from there. Yeah.
Okay, so my experience with FF6 is basically my experience with the beginning of gaming. I was 10 years old. It was 1997, and my brother had borrowed his friend's PlayStation. And I walk in one day, and here's Final Fantasy VII on the screen. I've never seen anything like it. Now, my brother and my dad, they'd always played games. My brother was 8 years older than me. And I'm stunned. I'm dancing in the kitchen to the Cosmo Canyon music. I'm having fun, and he won't let me touch it because it's not his, and I'm his annoying little sister, which is the biggest part. And we had really just gotten the internet in the house. So I get mad, and my thought is, well, Final Fantasy VII is new, and the internet must be brand new. And so I run into the computer, and I go online, and I look for Final Fantasy VII, which really, really made my mom mad, because we weren't allowed to have games. She's still crazy, sorry. But I found 4, 5, 6 in Chrono Trigger, and the nation was born.
Wow.
I actually, before my brother died, I actually got to tell him that my entire cosplay focus and all of that was his fault. And he was just like, what the hell is wrong with you? It was very funny. But so I attached to 4, 5, and 6, but I had still been chasing 7, and then I finally got to play it. You know, you idealize it for a little while, and then somewhere along the way, it goes away. And my first impression, now here's the crazy part. I did not have sound the first few times I played the game. I was using the ZNES emulator, and either we didn't have a sound card or the emulator wouldn't work. I actually ended up changing emulators a year or two later, and all of a sudden I had sound. But I was playing 4, 5, 6 concurrently, and when I got to 6, 3 or 4 days into starting to play, 4, I started 6, and the game opens, and you see the advance on Narshe, where you have the Biggs, Wedge, and Terra marching towards it, and my mind is blown. Now, I'm from a science fiction household, Star Wars woke us up on Christmas morning, that kind of thing.
Yep.
But here are these 3 armors, and my brother was a BattleTech and Warhammer player. So here I am. Oh my God, I get to have BattleTech too.
Yes.
And then they get there, and there's this girl in the driver's seat, and I'm thinking, wait a minute, we had Cecil and Bart's. I thought everything had to be about boys. I thought all the boys were going to be heroes, and the girls were the love interest. And here she comes in, and she has a massive, massive list of skills, while they only have 4. And I was just blown away. I was absolutely blown away. And I didn't know quite how to handle it. because I hadn't really attached to anything yet. Pokemon was kind of new, all of that. And here I am, 10 years old. What's my personality? Star Trek The Next Generation, Sequest DSV, and whatever else my parents... Xena and Hercules were still on TV.
Sure.
I didn't get into the Power Rangers. I still don't like the Power Rangers.
Right.
And so I finally had my own thing. And I didn't know what to do, how to handle this. So I run to school and I'm talking to my friends. I'm in elementary school and they're like, what are you talking about? There are Final Fantasies before 7. My brother's playing 7. And of course they ran off to play Power Rangers, or we were talking about something else. And I mean, it's elementary school. What are you going to do? So nobody really was kind of understanding of what I was talking about. I got to middle school and I knew this guy, Chris. Miss him. Can't find him anywhere on social media. I was talking to him about it and I said, yeah, I've played Final Fantasy 3. And he goes, wait, do you mean 3 or 6? Huh? And this really, really nice oboe player explained to me the differences in the numbers. And I was like, oh, there's a whole lot more that I have to play. I was wondering when 5.5 was slightly lower quality than 3.
Oh, that's funny.
But yeah, and he just kind of, he was a retro gamer. His parents kind of did the same thing that my dad did. And so I lived at the base of the Bridle Path in Simi Valley, California. So they were up in the Bridle Path. You can imagine the monetary distance between our two houses.
Sure.
So they always had games and stuff. And he was the only one I knew in middle school that could talk to me about it. And this problem followed me, and I would just keep talking about Terra and Final Fantasy VI. And, you know, for some reason in 2002, I'm a sophomore in high school, and everybody's still obsessed with 7 when 10 has just come out.
Yep.
And nobody gets it. Nobody gets it, except for one guy at the table, Wes, who was a longtime gamer and knew the games, and I could talk to him. He actually bought me the Chrono Trigger soundtrack for Christmas one year. So I'd had very few people in my life who could understand games, especially 6. I've known people that didn't understand that there were Final Fantasy games before 7. And I'm like, why do you think it was called 7? And they never think about it.
Right. It's not something they would compute. It sounds like you found this game early on, and you were searching for connection. It sounds like you're like always looking for someone to share this thing with. And it's so interesting as you finally, at the end of the road, you were able to find that one person at the lunch table who got, oh yeah, totally, 6 is fantastic. Let's talk about Final Fantasy 6, Final Fantasy 4. I find that really interesting. So what about the game? You alluded to it a little bit when we were first talking, how you identified with, it's the female and the lead and the magic tech armor, and she has this incredible list of abilities, while her 2 cronies kind of just have the basic stuff. What else about Terra connected with you on that level?
There's a lot, and it is dark. Some of it I won't share, a lot of detail I won't share, but...
That's fine.
I am from a very difficult home. My mother, I have generational trauma. My mother was severely abused by her mother, who was unwanted by her alcoholic father. And my mother carried that into her children, and she has an unmedicated disorder that both of her children had. And then my father had ADHD, so she had 2 children with multiple disorders when she herself was unregulated and wouldn't go to therapy no matter how much everybody begged her to do. We knew she could have been better. So everyone in the household was to blame. She has denial issues, lots of problems. And because of this disorder, she has rapid outbursts of anger and reacts to everything with anger. And along with this denial is the belief that you can do no wrong and that kind of thing. And so everyone in the household was evil and bad and not her. And we were ruining her life. She had a tendency to talk about me like I wasn't there and make up lies in front of me. And you kind of disassociate and let her do whatever she wants, because there is no winning. No one is ever going to listen to you, ever, because that's your mom. Of course she's telling the truth. And it was like living in a minefield. It really was. You didn't know what was going to piss her off, but you knew there was going to be an explosion.
something.
And I saw Terra. And the first thing that happens is they say, oh, that thing on her head. She won't even breathe unless we tell her to, which I'm going to come back to that. Mm-hmm. She can't talk. She can't think. All she can do is be programmed to fight. She's fully and completely disassociated. I looked at that and I saw, oh my God, that's just an extreme version of me. It's what my mother wants from me, is to be silent and obedient, and the knowledge in the back of my head that even if I do, I won't win. I'll end up doing something terrible, or she's going to explode at me in some way. And here comes the Welk with the lightning shell, and Biggs and Wedge, and it's just your father and your brother. They can't win either. It really hit me immediately. And in the next scene, after Tritok or Valagarmanda, however you want to refer to it, sends Biggs and Wedge away, and she wakes up in Arvis's house, and they remove the slave crown. There was an issue that I kept dealing with as a kid that I didn't know that there were words for, or that it was even a thing. Trauma blackout. Your brain will turn off and you will run on autopilot. You'll still have your personality, but you won't have as much conscious thought. And you'll just not be remembering that kinds of thing. And I have a lot of memories of just waking up in the middle of a school day. Like, oh my God, I've been plugged back into the Matrix, you know? Wow. And all of a sudden you're looking around and trying to figure out what's going on. And why is it March? It was just February, and that kind of thing. And here she comes, but she can remember her name, but nothing else. And I attached to that concept very, very hard because I got it to some degree. And to make matters worse, I was addicted to educational television. My father worked with the space program, Boeing. Take Your Kid to Work Day was awesome.
That sounds so fun.
I think it's X1-99 engine. I was a kid while they were developing that, and Dad was coming home and talking about it. I think he did some work for the ISS, which is amazing. But you watch all these educational shows. You watch the History Channel with my dad, who I have old parents. My mom was born in 1946. She was literally, born right after the war, 8 months after Grandpa came home. 9 months, well, whatever. But so I'm watching this and I go, it's a slave crown, and it took all her thought. And then we see Kefka, and they're in that little room, and you can tell looking at it, this is a medical room. Something's going on in here. And I went, it's plugged right into her spine, and she's on some kind of drug. Oh my God, no wonder she can't remember. I have ADHD and have been medicated since I was very young. I don't have a lot of my memories because in the early 90s, they were using amphetamines to control kids. They still do. It's Adderall. And it took so much. It destroyed my body. Never put a child on something like that. They don't grow up right. They can't. It's an amphetamine. If it can put people in the gutter, what is it going to do to a little kid who's growing?
Sure. And
I was watching this and just seeing and thinking about everything that would go into that. And that basically started my deep dive into my first playthrough of the game, connecting Final Fantasy VI to everything that I did know. And it just progressively got more and more horrifying in ways and concepts that most people, adult or child, don't see. They don't get. It's realizing, sitting in class and realizing, am I the only one that understands why the curtains are blue in this made up scenario in our literature class? Where the one where the teacher asks you, okay, but why is it important the curtains were blue? I'm like, it's reading comprehension. It sets the scene. And everybody missed that. And I feel like the odd one out, and I have to over explain. And then people look at me, they're like, they're just blue. No, they're not. Sorry. No.
There's a reason they're there. It's a reason.
It's a temperature gauge. It's a temperature gauge. Sure. Visual context clue, but you're reading the visual context. Like, he's in the kitchen. His mother just died. Why is it important the curtains are blue? Because it reflects how cold he feels.
Right.
Scene setting.
See, And that's remarkable that you were able to do that at that point. That's cool.
I did not read kids' books. When I was young, my mom, she had an 8-year-old. She wasn't expecting to have a baby come along. There weren't a lot of kids' books in the house. So she was handing me Andre Norton. Even my basis in science fiction is separate from everybody else. I was in middle school going, why are you reading Harry Potter? This sucks. Go play Final Fantasy. Why won't he cast Bolt? What's wrong with you? Nobody got it. It was fine. So I developed this skill because I was forced to, kind of.
Yeah.
And
sure.
They say the former gifted kid can't relate. I mean, I'm not gifted in the way people wanted me to be, but
sure.
I can explain things pretty well when it comes to a scene. And because Final Fantasy VI is so full of visual cues and context clues, I mean, they packed that cartridge so much. They were deleting names off of statements just to make sure they got the entire story in there. So a lot of it is told through visual context clue.
Yep, absolutely.
And so many people, they take what they see on the screen and see what's in the dialogue and move from there. They don't look any deeper, and we shouldn't have to. That's something that, people should choose to do. And when people, they ask me, all right, what's wrong with this scene? Why don't you agree with how everybody else views Celis? And I can point at that and go, why are you okay with her giving Locke the silent treatment? Why do you want to marry her when you can't stand it when your girlfriend does it? Like, they don't see it. And I'm very blessed now with my Discord because of TikTok. A lot of people have come to me willing to hear these things. And they're, as an adult, adults, we're more focused on, okay, but did you get the message of the story? And yes, loud and clear. And that, if I were to keep going, and we can get there, a deep dive into Terra and some of the things that I've seen and where I connected.
Really find that very interesting that you were able to connect with the game on so many different levels. It wasn't just an emotional level. It wasn't just a fun game, but you were exploring your own intellect through that game as well. You were stretching your mind. You were finding those context clues, those hidden things. When I'm playing the game as a 14-year-old, I'm like, oh, this is fun. Ultima, that's a cool spell. Like, none of this is hitting me. At a young age, it's the deeper themes of Final Fantasy VI, of which there are numerous, are hitting you in a very special way. And I think that's really rare and very cool. And I'm sorry you had to go through some of those situations on your end, but it sounds like you really had those moments.
And Terra kept following me. She really did. She the understanding, you're watching the scene set up when she turns into a monster and it hits you, boom, that's why she has green hair. Boom, that's why she has magic. She is not fully human. And then you see the scene where the Emperor kidnaps the baby and kills Madeline. Madonna. I prefer the original names. I'm sorry. But like, even when you break down Terra's name. Anyway. So he stabs her and he takes her, and you hear, oh, we're making Magitech. We've infused Celis with magical power. We drove Kefka crazy with it. And the realization of, oh my God, Terra's a science experiment. They full of needles, blood draws, blood transfusion, using her DNA to break the code. And then we get to, let's imagine one thing. If anybody, has kids, if they have a little girl, we all know that little girls have periods. And I don't know about you, but if the little girl turns into a monster and starts throwing fire, and we're talking 2 times attack, 2 times magic, and she's throwing orderlies around, we're scooping her up, throwing her in a fireproof box, and walking away for 7 days. And it's so many people come to me and they're like, well, she first turned into an Esper when she was 18. Why would we believe that? What led you to believe that? She probably came out of her mother furry and screaming.
Yeah.
And it's so hard to find people that think like that. Birth is traumatic for mother and child. Of course she's a monster. She's afraid. That doesn't mean she's fight or flight afraid, so why would she turn into a monster? It goes a lot into psychology. You mentioned, hey, Terra was likely dehumanized by the entire military. It's why Kefka did what he did. But Celis, came out perfect. No, she didn't. Celis was horrifically neglected. People get so confused when I say we don't save Cid in this house. Look at it. Celis was severely neglected. That's her entire problem. Yeah, Granddad because she was obedient. Do you think lying in a bed for a year, nobody attacked her in the worst possible way? How many people do you think Cid pulled off of a comatose woman? Do you think Cid was kind to her? No, it's the end of the world. And I'm, 10, 15, I keep playing it and putting more and more together. And in the middle of all of it, I'm in school, we're learning about ancient history. There's like a revival of World War II historical documentation and on the Used to Be About History channel. And I'm watching all of that and learning about the worst figures from history. And then all of a sudden it clicks. Hiroshima and Nagasaki. The devs of the Final Fantasy team were the children of people that lived through Hiroshima and Nagasaki. Of course, all of the references to the evil empire are going to be the 1940s in Germany and the Axis powers. And people just look at you, they're like, why are you talking about that when you're talking about a video game? Do you not see the salute? It's right there.
It's right there. That's a really good point.
And why do you need to believe that Celis and Terra were raped? I don't need to believe it. They're in the military and they're two beautiful young women. And then like, we respect the military, but I'm just going to gesture at the news of what's happening constantly.
I mean, yeah, it's a very fair assessment, and I love when people think deeply about this sort of thing. Oh, I truly do, because it's so easy not to. Yeah. And this, especially a game like Final Fantasy VI and other games too, but since I'm in the Final Fantasy world right now, there is so much richness there that people can miss. And I think those ideas and thoughts that you brought up are really fascinating.
Do you want to know the scariest thing about the game?
Go for it.
There are 2 lines said in the game that everybody misses. Everybody misses them. Cid says plants wither when Celis wakes up. And Lola, when you're beginning Cyan's quest in the world of Ruin, says the flowers won't grow anymore. So he makes me silk ones. My specialty, before I had to accept that I'm disabled, I'm not going to make it through college, my specialty was seismology and volcanology. And in the scene after the low orbit asteroid, and we know it's low orbit because we can see the continents underneath it, smashes into the planet, it opens up something called a volcanic trap. And you know how when you're watching old dinosaur movies, they have that massive lake of lava and you're thinking, that's cool, but that can't be real. It's real. Oceans of lava, the Declan traps and the Siberian traps specifically, and watching the tectonic plates move. And I go, oh no, it's not a nuclear apocalypse. It's a volcanic one. And what people forget is the flower is the breeding part of the plant. The flower has to be open to attract the bumblebee to take the pollen. If there are no flowers, there are no crops. If there are no crops, there are no livestock. We have had a full extinction event and are in a slowed down decline. And when you go to Moblise in the second half of the game and you see Terra for the first time, every single context clue, from the long time it takes to get out there to the burned out buildings, the wild dogs that are partially tame, as they would be. She says, Funbaba is outside and they still say she gave up. When they go find her, she's emaciated. She's starving to death. No wonder she can't pick up her sword. And in that situation, it's not giving up to choose survival. There are 7 child sprites and 2 teenagers in there. She is probably one of the very few, if Dwayne is lucky and can hunt, but it's a frontier town separated from the rest of the Veldt. He's more than likely either a trapper or a farmhand. Katerin can probably midwife, but that's about it. She's the hunter. And if she's so tired she can't hunt, of course she can't pick up her sword. And here comes Celis, atrophied and finally getting better after a year in a coma. And they see each other. And I can't imagine the way Celis started sobbing or Terra started sobbing, because here you are and I can't have you back. So everybody just looks at that and they're like, well, she gave up. Did she? Did she? What would you have done? Have you ever heard the cry of a starving child? It's gut-wrenching, even if you hate kids. And seeing that, and seeing that she put her sword down, and the fact that she didn't give up, she redirected her strength and what she could do. That was my teenage years. I redirected and did what I could and took care of what I could, because when I was a teenager, my first boyfriend in high school, not a good man. He had his heart broken and then decided he was going to abuse as many women as he could. And you know how on the internet we hear the buzzwords gaslight and manipulation and all these things going around, and you're sitting there going, were you gaslit or were you just lied to? And in a lot of situations, it was just a bad relationship. I did unfortunately experience the clinical term, up to 15 people, and, you know, the world being changed around me, and things just weren't true. And it took starting my college classes and going, wait a minute, I'm not a monster. Everybody's just, they're being lied to. What's going on? Wow. And I was able to, again, and all of this, you know, you go back later and you realize where the connections are in your life. And, well, Terra's not a monster either, is she?
No.
She's just what she is. She doesn't hurt people if she doesn't want to. Even when she goes screaming across the sky and destroys Kohlingen, a young girl and a woman say it had kind eyes. It had kind eyes. And in the aftermath, you know, why did I detach from Final Fantasy VII? Things around 7 and involving my ex-husband and horrors beyond what we want to think about happening to our daughters. And it just kept going back. Oddly, again, Terra was part of the reason I disconnected, because Dissidia had come out and I was over the moon, and he had played Squall and Cloud, which are all he really cared about. And I took it and I said, you are going to let me play Terra now. You have no idea. The day they announced her, I was screaming. I was so happy. And he looks at me and he goes, why do you care so much about her? She's annoying. And when I tell you, I almost put a man in the hospital.
I can imagine.
Like, it's a stupid reason, but a reason's a reason, you know?
No. Yeah.
But
totally. Time once again to thank my wonderful patrons, starting with Terry Kinnair, Games with Coffee, BT Goebbels, Julian of the Stage Select Podcast, Seth Sergil of the All In Podcast, Tim Knowles, formerly of The Elitist, The Let's Play Princess, Greg Seward of the Player One Podcast and Generation 16 series of videos, Philip Becker, and the one and only debonair and always well-groomed Pete Harney. If you would like to join these wonderful human beings in their philanthropy of this show, then by all means go to patreon.com/agamerlooksit4040. Check out the tiers, and if anything strikes your fancy, by all means sign up today. And if not, tell a friend, or a rating and review always helps the algorithm find this show. Thank you so much for listening. Let's get back to the episode.
I did end up leaving him hilariously. I made a friend online, and again, when the abuser can't get to the other people, the people that show you what's going on. I met him online, oddly, on a text-based roleplay site. I can't even date properly. I was still married to my ex, and I'm talking to this weird guy about D&D and magic and all kinds of stuff that we're talking about. And he starts talking about paladins. And he says, and it's on the tip of my tongue. You know it's coming. I'm about to say, hey, have you played Final Fantasy IV? And he goes, do you know who Cecil Harvey is? And I'm like, I'm marrying this man. He's out there. We were just Cecil and Rosa to meet Yuri Lowenthal last week, or a couple of weeks ago. And I actually, I did leave my ex, and I married Mr. Perfect out there. And
That's awesome.
He jumped on board with the retro gaming cosplay and all of that. We made it our whole thing. I'm actually the reason he played Final Fantasy VI. And the coolest thing is something that most people don't do with this game, especially since the Pixel Remasters came out. You know, we want to share it with our loved ones. They'll sit there and they'll tell them what to do for Celis's story, to spare them the jump. And I want to note it's in 16-bit. She survives. If I understand the tears, I was emotional because at 10 years old, I had already had suicidal ideology for 5 years. No 5-year-old should understand that. Bare understanding of death, and here we are. And I watched Celis jump, and it hit a lot of us differently. And for me, it was hope. It was, you couldn't even kill yourself. And here you are waking up at the bottom, and you chose to go. You lived. And that was so powerful to me. But you have people controlling it so they don't have to live through it, or their loved one can't live through it. So they miss an important part, which is imagine the conversations you could have if you did it differently. And he did. I was completely non-present while he was playing 6 years and years ago when it released on the original Wii. And he saved Sid because he thought it's fast fish. They're the healthy ones. So we have this great ability to have conversations from being able to see these characters differently. And I wouldn't trade that for the world.
That's cool.
And to have him be with me on this cosplay journey is incredible.
I love it. I think it's so cool. My wife and I have always said we want to try our hand at cosplay at some point, do something. We've always said it, but kids and everything else, it gets in the way sometimes. My wife was a fashion designer. She went to FIT, and so she can make
so cool.
She's amazing. She can make anything. She's sitting right next to me, but she can make anything.
Hi, wife.
And we've always said we want to give it a shot, but it's one of those with time and kids and all the rest of it. But so I think it's so cool that you bonded with somebody, and I love hearing stories of people connecting through games, through the medium, and through fandoms, because I think those are very special connections, and those are things people don't talk about. You don't see those articles on Kotaku, right? So I think it's a very beautiful story, and I'm glad you shared that with me.
Oh, I'm glad cool. I'm glad you think it's beautiful, because I honestly think it's a dumpster fire train wreck. But here we go. I mean, and connecting with people, TikTok. Everybody thinks of it as the the silly dance platform, but here it is, a political power. It's we're communicating, we're forming communities, we're learning about other countries. It's a great educational resource. And in 2020, I had filmed that they had canceled our con, and I was really mad. So I had decided to film. Do you know what the bottle flick meme is from 2016?
I do not know that one. No.
It's a video meme, and this was on Vine before we ever got to TikTok. The character you're cosplaying would pick up their phone, see something that's obviously stressful, drop the phone, pick up a bottle, flick the cap off, and chug. I had wanted to do that for a very long time, and I was like, you know what? I need to wear my cosplay. I'm going to do this. And we set it up, the whole table. I had the whole regalia on, and I'm sitting next to the window, and I'm holding a map that is the inner sphere from BattleTech. And so I'm trying to hide that. And my husband is filming, and I double take out the window, and I edited in the angel Kefka coming down, and I just sigh, drop the map, pick up the bottle, flick it. It flies across the room. You hear it ping off of something. And then I get up, all of the coin belt is going, jingle, jingle, grab my husband's cutlass, and I just walk out the door. And it took a couple tries, and this was the middle of the day, and it was sweet wine, and I didn't even think maybe don't sip it. So by the end of this, I'm a little gone. But I put that on TikTok, and it got a good response. And what actually happened was day one, a Kefka cosplayer found me. When I got started, there were 3 cosplay videos or cosplay character videos for Final Fantasy VI. That wonderful Kefka, who is still a friend. A lady who did a Kazakh cosplay of Opera Celis, but has such a large community that she doesn't do Celis anymore. She doesn't talk to anybody. And then a lady who had just had her hair done, a beautiful jade green, and she was like, I kind of have something I can wear for Terra. Yeah, I'll throw this on. So I hit the scene, and it was empty, essentially, except for my friend Cheru. And I was like, no. I'm gonna be petty. The remake is coming out of 7. Where is 6? So I just kept filming, and I kept going and making the dumbest stuff. One of my favorite comedy bits that I continue is the Chaos Girls, Celis and Terra. They're serial killers. We're absolutely certain. But I kept going and I kept gaining traction, and periodically more and more people would find me. And I actually just got another one before the interview starts, messages of, you have no idea what you've done for me. I got it back. I got my memories back. I'd forgotten. I have to show my son. I showed you the 30th anniversary video. 2 weeks, 8 costumes. TikTok got me to build more than I've ever built in my life. It solidified my retro gaming, repertoire. It was originally Terra and Shala. I would wear Terra to every con, rebuilt her 9 times, still going. She's my comfort therapy cosplay. So when I have to do something hard, I go to Terra because she's gotten me through so much. It's the same struggle. And it all boils down to, if Terra could do it, so could I. And you hang on to it. And the hard part to get people to understand is that you have a different personality than the character. You are not her.
Sure.
And
sure.
Some people just, sometimes they don't see that. And that's hard to navigate. And TikTok has been a wonderful resource for not only accepting Terra's role in my life, but in the lives of others. I had a now friend of mine, talking about connections. One lives only 2 hours from me. We had no idea. And he was the cloud who was on all my Dissidia nonsense, and family friend now, consider him family. Another one up in Canada, finds a video that I did that had gone slightly viral. And, my name gets passed around a little bit in the retro gaming cosplay community and retro gaming in general. Mama Terra, never intended that to happen. Why people? I'm just insane. But my name is said in other countries, and I don't know how to handle it. But I mean, it is what it is.
That's wild. That's cool.
God, finding out that they know me in Japan was terrifying.
That's actually really cool.
God, I'm expected in Germany and Edinburgh, Scotland at one point.
Wow.
So
that's really interesting.
Yeah, there's my world travel desires. But there was this young man in Canada, he's my age, who finds me and he goes, "This is amazing. I haven't thought about Final Fantasy VI for years." And I said, "Well, I hope that this gave you some good memories." He goes, I don't know if my Kefka cosplay still fits. And I go, "Did you say Kefka cosplay? Excuse me?" And I said, "Well, if you choose to try it on, I hope it does. And if it doesn't, I hope you get some good memories out of it." And those are the words that basically sealed my fate and helped me understand who I am. Because I get this video that comes back that is a severely green screen effects, amazing for TikTok, not Hollywood, but video of a duet to the cosplay video that I did. And I can find it and send it to you if you like. But
yeah, I'd love to see it.
He built his Kefka off of the FMVs from the PlayStation release with his grandmother. Ooh. And it was the last thing they made together before she passed away. So in telling him that, he went to the box, pulled out Kefka and his grandmother, essentially all of those memories, and it did fit. And this is my friend who I have no idea if we're ever going to meet, but those are the connections that you make. I get told regularly, I can't see the sprite of Terra anymore without seeing you and that 7-foot-long cape and just all of the details and extravagance. Like you can see, I call myself extra. Everything I do has to be big and crazy. Then, people that I'm playing the game for the first time and I hear your voice and I'm sitting here going, I'm a second soprano. This character has always been represented with the tiniest doll-like girl voice. And they go, no, I can't hear her without the strength in your voice. And it's mind-boggling what you do for people just by existing in a cosplay. And you go to cons and con stories. Yay.
Yes.
I actually chose the name Mama Terra because of TikTok and not realizing that Mama Terra was probably the most fitting name I could have plucked from the game itself. Because we moved back to this city when my husband got his degree and went back to con, and people recognized us. And they came up to us and go, you have no idea how weird it was being at con without you two. Because we're the longest relationship many of them have ever seen. And that's so comforting to a lot of people. And then here we are in matching cosplays. Everybody wants a cosplay partner to cosplay with them. It's so rare. But standing in a room, one of my favorites is I'm in the library. They had a free con, and we're going towards the cosplay contest and all that. And from across the room, I hear Terra screamed, top of their lungs, echoing off the rafters. This is a very big library. And I turn around and get my arms open in time to catch 5'2" of woman, like, starting to cry. Oh my god, I've never seen a Terra cosplayer. This is the coolest thing I've ever seen. Oh my god. And I'm hanging on to her. And it helps that I'm okay with hugging. And she's just, it made her whole day being able to find other Terras and go, excuse me, will you take a picture with me? Because twinsies are the best thing. Like, oh my god, this is another person who loves the thing that I love. It's just groundbreaking to you as a person when that happens. But the best one, the single best cosplay interaction that I have ever had was last year. There was Classic Game Fest in Austin, Texas. Amazing selling show. Love it. I walk in. It was the first time we'd been there, and I was in Terra. Full Terra. I made a new cape. I was wearing the summer cape. I have 3 capes. Is that a problem? One's covered in flowers. One is 2 layers of chiffon, and then there's the 7-footer with a layer of organza. And anyway, we call it the regalia for a reason. So I walk in, and right inside, we get towards the door, and this woman, about my age, looks at me and goes, oh my god, and she's got a Final Fantasy VI t-shirt on. And she is starting to get emotional. We're having a great conversation. And people are coming in. We haven't even gotten in the doors yet. And this family comes towards me. It's a dad and his 2 sons. And they are sub age 5. And the 5-year-old is there, and his younger brother is maybe at best 3, toddling along slowly. And I feel, I'm talking, and I feel this tiny little hand on my leg. And I look down, and the toddler is looking up at me mesmerized. Big brown eyes, floofy blonde hair, just staring. And I instantly, there is a part of your brain that clicks. And it's instant princess mode when you're in costume. And I crouch, and I have severe spinal issues. I'm lucky to be alive. I'm lucky to have my vision. This is something that I don't really tell my stream, but I have had 2 brain surgeries last year in the span of a month. I walked away with some neurological issues, and this was before those surgeries. So I was careening towards a stroke or catastrophic seizure. When they opened my pressures, my brain cavity was at 14. It is supposed to be between 2 and 4. And I'm alive. And that goes back to Terra too. But I crouched down. I have almost no balance most of the time. Spine can't handle anything, and my feet were destroyed by my ADHD medication. So wearing heels, but we gotta be extra. We do it because we love it, not because it's comfortable. And I'm crouching down in my crazy boots and just perch right there. And people are freaking out because, oh my god, it's Terra with a kid. And I must have, some universal deity must have looked down and gone, you are going to have perfect balance. While I'm with this child he's touching all of my cosplay. He's touching my lace. My leggings at the time were covered in gems. So he's touching the gems and my shoes. And my sword, which was a gift from a friend, has beads and a feather hanging from it. So it's really dramatic looking. And he's touching the feather and he's playing with it. And his brother is coming over and touching the sword. And I never let anybody touch the swords. It's PLA 3D printing. It's surprisingly delicate. And they're just mesmerized. People are snapping pictures and they were so focused on me. And I was just so zoomed into them. There was nothing but those children. And I immediately, I don't know what happened, turned into Terra. And it was Terra in the world of ruin with her children. And they were so, it was the best thing. It's the absolute best. And when you do this, there's a lot of negativity in the community, in the retro community. And sometimes those good moments can drown out years of bad in an instant. And it does. and being a face in the retro community on TikTok. Everybody knows Mama Terra on there in the retro scene. And you get the worst of it. You really do. But when the good comes, it's so big and so good. And it keeps you going.
Once again, thank you so much to Mama Terra for taking time out of her busy schedule to chat with me about Final Fantasy VI. It's one of those conversations where I got a little misty-eyed a few times, and I just really thank her for her vulnerability and her honesty, and for showing us exactly why she does what she does. And I think it's actually a truly beautiful story about connection, and I hope you've thought the same. Please, please, please give her a follow on TikTok at .mama.terra. There's a link tree in her bio that'll give you access to all of her everything, including her Discord, Twitch, Instagram, and so much more. Thanks as always to Kev from the Discord and Mr. P. Harney for all the work they do helping me with these episodes. Thank you again to my patrons for their unwavering patronage, and thank you for listening to this edition of A Gamer Looks at 40. If you like what you hear, go to gamerlooksat4040.com. Links to all of my socials live on that site, and I'd love to hear what you think about this episode and all the other Final Fantasy episodes we'll be doing in the future. Thanks again for listening, and until next time, be kind to yourselves and each other.